Hey everyone, so in today's video we're looking at point of view, which is exploring the perspective of the narrator. Now, we've already talked about point of view as far as viewpoint, but you gotta love English and the fact that we just have to make the same names for everything. And so this is going to be the point of view, which you probably all remember from elementary school, for a second and third person. And we're moving into some literary nonfiction as well as continuing along with our main idea and objective summary. And so just as we are continuing through or into literary nonfiction, I want to make sure that we understand the different points of view, because understanding the different points of view allows you to better understand the perspective of the literary nonfiction. So when it comes to point of view, also with this video, I'm just asking you to go through the notes with me. I feel like this is a review from elementary school and I just want it fresh in your mind. I don't need to suspend an entire bell writing down notes on something that hopefully is just like boom, 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 we remember them. So point of view, it's the way the author chooses to tell the story. It's the voice and scope of the narrator. It affects how much we, as readers, know about the characters and events in the story. So purposes of POV, how the author wants the reader to see and hear what takes place in the story, right? So how does the author want us, the reader, to see or hear what takes place in the story? And so there's different ways that we can do that, right? If I go from a first person perspective, it's completely different than a third person perspective, because when it's first person, you're only seeing and hearing the main character or the character that we're following, the narrator, whereas with a third person, it can really open up what we see. However, third person, as you know, even from video games, you don't get the same perspective that a first person would. So first person, keywords, the pronouns I, the pronoun we, mine, me, my. The narrator is a character in the story and tells the story using the pronoun I. The narrator participates in the actions of the story. Now, there's a funny story, not a funny story, it's kind of a tragic story, but it's called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. It's actually a movie now as well, but it's written by a very famous author. It's a short story, and you guys are like short stories with me sometimes, and when you see a 6-page story and you're like, this isn't a short story, I need a paragraph, that's a short story. A 6-page story is a short story compared to a 350-page novel, so think about it like that. However, there's a short story called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button that is a little bit longer than 6 pages. It's actually 35 pages. I would never give you a story like that because the length is insane, but when you look at a short story like that, at the beginning of the story, he actually starts off, sorry for the pause there. I just wanted to pull this up really quick. So this is The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. It's a pretty long short story, but here we go. Like at the very beginning, at present, so I am told, right? I am told. And then here he says it one more time. I am about to set down. I shall tell you what occurred. And then I kid you not, the rest of the story, he does not say I again. However, this is talking, right? This is dialogue. However, because he says it at the beginning, it becomes first person. So the rest of the story, even though he never does it again, is all first person point of view, because he is a character participating in the story and it's told from his perspective. It's crazy. However, it's legitimately crazy. So right now, what could be some limitations of first person point of view? So talk with your group. What are some limitations of first person point of view? Pause this video, have that conversation really quickly. And so these are the limitations, right? You only have access to the narrator's limited knowledge and understanding of the events and other characters. The narrator can only tell us what they are thinking, what they are feeling, what they are observing. You have to judge if the narrator is reliable or not. There's some books out there where I've read the entire book, and then you get to the end and you're like, wait a minute, was all of this a lie? Was all of this fake? Was any of this real? Was any of this true? And it's because the whole story is told from an unreliable narrator and you don't know. You have no idea if the narrator is reliable. Now, second person is keywords like you and your. The story is told from the viewpoint of the reader using the pronoun you. The reader gets to imagine being the main character. Choose your own adventure books. These don't happen very much. The key here with second person is just knowing in your own writing, you should really try to avoid it unless you're writing a story, because you and your make your writing seem informal, or like it's saying, it's like putting the reader in there, and it's good practice to try to avoid it. So those two are pretty easy to identify. And then we get to third person. And it's not that third person is hard to identify. There's just 3 different types of third person. So third person keywords here are he, she, it, they, or a name. A person not involved in the story is telling the story. So there are 3 types: objective, limited, and omniscient. Always a hard word, but we've learned the prefix omni, right? So, which means all knowing. And so are three types. Objective, the narrator knows or reveals nothing about the character's internal thoughts, feelings, and motivations, but sticks to the external facts of the story. This is probably the rarest of the three. I don't want to speak for it, but it's the one I don't think I see as much. At least they really try to stick to the limited or the omniscient, but objective does exist. Limited, the narrator describes the internal thoughts, feelings, and motivations of one character, usually the main character. We as readers are limited in our knowledge of other characters. This one happens very, very, very frequently. We see one character, we know everything that character is thinking, everything that character is feeling, but told from like an eye in the sky that's following them around. And then the last one is third person omniscient. This is when the narrator knows and at least partially reveals the internal thoughts, feelings, and motivations of all the characters. The narrator peers inside the minds and hearts of characters at will and tells us what they are thinking, what they are feeling, and the narrator interprets and comments on behaviors and actions as they're going through it. Okay, so really in sixth grade, they're not going to hit you too hard and try to trip you up with some of these. Okay, but it's just kind of getting an overall idea that there are three different types of third person. There is the first person. And omniscient can be tricky too, in just the sense that you can have limited omniscient as well, where you have chapters that are told from different characters. Like one chapter's from Mr. Black, one chapter's from Mrs. Paulus, one chapter's from Mrs. Curling, one chapter's from Mrs. Liverman. But because we're getting different perspectives of different characters, it's still omniscient because we know what all of these characters are thinking instead of just focusing on one character. So that's how you tell the difference. If it's just one character and limited to only one, you only follow a story from the perspective of Mr. Black, then it's limited. Now, what we want to do is we want to do this practice, which is super quick, and have me check it, and then hopefully there's time to take the quizzes. Okay? So this practice, and then hopefully there's time to take the quizzes. As always, if you have any questions, everyone just let me know. That's Point of View in a nutshell. Thank you.